Okay, so stream's going. I still can't figure out how to make this not as blurry. I think I might have to switch to my phone to be able to do that and stream from my phone in future. So every time I move it, it just like pulses and tries desperately to adjust. It's still like pulsing. I don't know how to make that not do that. So interesting that's what happens. I think that the quality would be better if I just like. Why is it still pulsing? Stop it. So annoying. Let me try something else. Oops. Yep, what I'm trying is I'm actually knocking my camera down. I'm gonna try that for a change. Just a different angle. See if it does anything. Instead of pulsing for some reason. Where are we up to? Chapter 7. That's what I said on the stream. That's what I'm supposed to be doing today. That's not chapter 7, that's chapter 4. Surprised how far I've actually been able to get with this novel. Okay, here we have is chapter 7. Okay, it doesn't look to be pulsing, so that's good. That's something. Um, let me move the rest of these highlighters away. Right. So that's decent. You guys can see that. I think next time I'm gonna use my phone. I'm just gonna work out the YouTube Studio app. I actually, fun fact, I don't update my phone enough, so I actually don't have the latest version of YouTube Studio on my phone yet, which is why I'm not streaming from my phone today. But let's get into chapter 7. Um, not struggling to adjust today with this angle, so maybe it was just the angle that I was using. I like this. My slumbers are filled with disturbing dreams. That's PTSD that Katniss already has before going into the games. Okay. And the redheaded girl. Images from earlier Hunger Games. That's interesting that she's actually traumatized by the games that she's witnessed in the past because she's actually like witnessing people die. Once again, PTSD. Yeah. The capital has a misty, haunted air. That's so interesting. So today I'm gonna go through chapter 7 and 8. I'm trying to do at least 2 chapters each stream because I think that'll get us through the novel in like 6 weeks, I think, possibly. Don't quote me on that. As I get better at annotating, I'm hoping I can get through a bit more. It takes me forever to annotate for starters, and it takes even longer to where was I going with that thought? I always lose my train of thought constantly. It takes me even longer to read. I've always been a slow reader. Let me try and that doesn't do anything. Turning on. Oh no, it does. A little bit. Okay. So there's 27 chapters in total in this book. Susan Collins likes her like 27 chapter novels, which is good. Except for Songbirds and Snakes, it's longer. I don't remember how many chapters Sunrise and the Reaping is. It might be 27 as well. It's just that Songbirds and Snakes is a lot longer. I think it's how long is it? 30 chapters perhaps? This is the first time since the morning of the reaping that I resemble myself. No fancy hair and clothes, no flaming capes, just me looking like I could be headed into the woods. It calms me. Um, I said last stream that makeup actually is used when Katniss is not looking like herself. So whenever she does look like herself, she doesn't have any makeup on either. Also, like highlighting all the food that Katniss eats. I load a plate with eggs, sausages, batter cakes covered in thick orange preserves, slices of pale purple melon. As I gorge myself, I watch the sunrise over the capital. I have a second plate of hot grains smothered in beef stew. Finally, I fill a plate with rolls and sit at the table, which is so funny. And then she breaks off bits of bread and dip them into hot chocolate, the way Peter did on the train. I think that's interesting. She's taking after Peter, even though she's trying to compete with him as well. And if you didn't catch my stream last time when I was highlighting when Candace first tried hot chocolate on the capital train on the way to the capital after the reaping, I highly recommend dipping bread into hot chocolate, specifically sourdough, also really good with that. Um, so I'm just writing down taking after Peter. Even though she doesn't trust him. I wonder one day if I'm going to get better at writing in novels because my handwriting is just incredibly messy. I actually need to put my glasses on. I'm sitting off to kind of like the side of my live stream, and the book is quite far away from me, and I need glasses for long distance. If you guys have ever noticed in my um videos that sometimes I have glasses on top of my head because when I get like really tired and I'm usually filming like late at night or something, I um I need glasses when I'm tired because my eyes won't adjust. But I had to take my glasses off, otherwise my ring light reflects them. So I'm just putting my glasses on so I can see my book from far away so I can continue reading it properly. Okay. We also have a few more people on the stream than usual actually today, which is interesting. Welcome everyone to these live streams. I stream every Tuesday and Thursday now while annotating the Hunger Games, and we're going to do all of the books, all five of the books in a series. I'm learning how to annotate books because I haven't actually annotated books properly in the past. So I thought it'd be an interesting challenge, especially since I'm like a Hunger Games YouTuber. Should I read out loud when I'm reading? I've been doing kind of just reading it in my head and pointing out the things that I'm highlighting and writing down as I'm annotating. I don't know if you guys want me to like read out what I'm reading exactly. I just kind of read in like a monotone voice. Makes me irritated that Peter is wearing exactly the same outfit as I am. We need to say something to Cinna. Twins again. I last stream we were talking about reading out loud would be easier to follow. Okay, I might just read out loud then because I was thinking about that and I'm like, I don't know. I don't I don't know if it's helpful or unhelpful. Right, twins. Twins again. Okay. This is where I'm up to, right? Okay, Hamish and Peter come in, bid me good morning, fill their plates. It makes me irritated that Peter is wearing exactly the same outfit as I am. I need to say something to Cinna. This twins act is going to blow up in their faces once the games begin. Just gonna highlight that. I love that they put them in uniting outfits, and I've annotated that a couple times throughout the last chapter when they start putting them in similar outfits. I just gotta find where I've written it. Give me a second. It's like an act of rebellion. Okay, here it is. Okay, this is one of the things that I've done. Plotting Peter's strategy to pair him with Katniss, once again, uniting the district. So every time they put them in pairs, they actually um they do it as like an act of rebellion to unite the districts. Just the commenter in the comment section as well is saying the quality of the image isn't good enough for me to read it. It's actually, I don't know, I think it's a combination of my internet connection as well and what's going on with my streaming. I think I'm going to change to streaming it on my phone because I think it possibly will be better quality for the next stream. So I'm going to do that next time. But like yeah, reading it out, it's not just your internet, it's also my internet. What was I up to? Surely they must know this. Then I remember Hamish telling me to do exactly what the stylists tell me to do. If it was anyone but Cinna, I might be tempted to ignore him, but after last night's triumph, I don't have a lot of room to criticize his choices. So here, their relationship is developing quite a bit as well. I'm nervous about the training. There will be 3 days in which all the tributes practice together. On the last afternoon, we'll each get a chance to perform in private before the game makers. The thought of meeting the other tributes face to face makes me queasy. I turn I turn the roll. Actually, hang on. Hang on. I'm just like thinking of what I want to do. I want to highlight how the games works. How the games work. What else was I gonna write? How the games work once they reach the capital. Okay. How the games work once they reach the capital. Capital and district civilians don't see this part. This isn't streamed or anything to the capital like the games are once they get into the arena. Oh, I was reading. I turn the roll I have just taken from the basket over and over in my hands, but my appetite is gone. When Hamish has finished several platters of stew, he pushes back his plate with a sigh. He takes a flask from his pocket and takes a long pull on it and leans his elbows on the table. So let's get down to business training. First off, if you like, I'll coach you separately. Decide now. Oh, and this is when I think this is when they get into an argument about their skills, possibly. Why would you coach us separately? I ask. Say if you had a secret skill and might not want the other to know about, says Hamish. I exchange a look with Peter. I don't have any secret skills, he says. And I already know what yours is, right? I mean, I've eaten enough of your squirrels. You'll notice I actually can't say the word squirrels. I don't know why. I don't know why that's particularly something I can't say. Um, I just want to say that like secret skill you might not want the other to know about. It's also a part of how the games works because they keep the skills. Candace actually keeps the skills secret from the tributes later on. Um, from the other tributes because they don't. She doesn't actually grab a bow when leaving cornucopia. And I think Hamish mentions this in this same section. I imagine it's like a really big reveal um, that she actually can wield a bow to the capital. Like it's something that, say, like Caesar Flickerman would realize and have to commentate on because everyone's like freaking out that this random District 12 tribute can actually wield a bow and arrow. Can you imagine being a capital civilian and realizing that? That's actually kind of interesting. I never thought about Peter eating the squirrels I shot. Somehow I always pictured the baker quietly going off and frying them up for himself. Not out of greed, but because town families usually eat expensive butcher meat, beef and chicken and horse. Horse is an expensive meat. I guess they wouldn't have a lot of horses in the districts, would they? You can coach us together, I tell Hamish. Peter nods. All right, so give me some idea of what you can do. Says Hamish, I can't do anything, says Peter, unless you count baking bread. Sorry, I don't, Katniss. I already know you're handy with a knife, says Haymitch. I bet you, because we know in Sunrise on the Reaping, he knows Burdock can use a bow and arrow. So surely at this point he's thinking that he knows how, like, that surely Burdock showed her how to use a bow and arrow, that he's just like letting her fill in the blanks herself before he mentions anything. So I'm just gonna write an annotation. I'll like read it out to you guys. Because he knows, he says even in Sunrise on the Reaping that the Everdeen's are hunters, so they're richer than most. That's like almost the exact quote that he says in Sunrise on the Reaping. So I've written here, Haymitch would know about Burdock's skills with a bow and arrow and how he would have taught Katniss. I'm just gonna write more on the side. Haymitch is letting Katniss So Haymitch is letting Katniss fill in the blanks herself. Okay. Not really, but I can hunt, I say, with a bow and arrow. And you're good? Asks Haymitch. Of course he knows that she's good. I have to think about it. I've been putting food on the table for 4 years. That's no small task. I'm not as good as my father was, but he'd had more practice. I've a better aim than Gale, but I've had more practice. He's a genius with traps and snares. I'm all right, I say. She's excellent, says Peter. My father buys her squirrels. He always comments on how the arrows never pierce the body. She hits everyone in the eye. It's the same with the rabbit she sells the butcher. She can even bring down deer. This assessment of my skills from Peter takes me totally by surprise. First, that he ever noticed. Second, that he's talking me up. What are you doing? I ask him suspiciously. Well, it's only highlighted. Part of the page that I did not mean to do. Katniss, clueless. So Katniss, clueless. I'm just going to put down here. Katniss is unaware. Katniss is unaware of how many people notice her. What are you doing? If he's going to help you, he has to know what you're capable of. Don't underrate yourself, says Peter. I don't know why, but this rubs me the wrong way. Also, I want to highlight suspiciously here because she's still not trusting Peter. What about you? I've seen you in the market. You can lift 50-kilo bags of flour. I snap at him. Tell him that. That's not nothing. Yes, and I'm sure the arena will be full of bags of flour for me to chuck at people. It's not like being able to use a weapon. You know it isn't, he shoots back. He can wrestle, I tell Hamish. He came in second in our school competition last year, only after his brother. What use is that? How many times have you seen someone wrestle someone to death? Says Peter in disgust. At this point in the movie, Effie actually pulls a face like she's seen someone do that in the arena that people always point out, and I find that hilarious. There's always hand to hand combat. All you need is to come up with a knife, and you'll at least stand a chance. If I get jumped, I'm dead. I can hear my voice rising in anger. The fact that they're getting angry over this is so funny. But you won't be. You'll be living up in some tree eating raw squirrels and picking off people with arrows. You know what my mother said to me when she came to say goodbye? As if to cheer me? She says maybe District 12 will finally have a winner. Then I realized she didn't mean me, she meant you, burst out Peter. You know what? Hang on, I need to highlight this. Peter's mother is an abuser. Love that. I think we can tell that by the way that she slapped him across the face when he gave that bread to Katniss. Peter's mother doesn't care for him. How sad. I want to do like a little frowny face here. Oh, wait, hang on. That's not turning out very well. I regret doing that. Why would I do that? Okay, let's continue on. Oh, she meant you, I say with a wave of dismissal. She said, she's the survivor, that one. She is, says Peter. That pulls me up short. Did his mother really say that about me? Did she rate me over her son? I see the pain in Peter's eyes, and no, he isn't lying. That's so sad that like Peter was not chosen by his mother. Peter often also the second choice. Often the second choice and underestimated. Peter is often the second choice and it is underestimated. He's quite a strong tribute. He just gets injured because the odds are not in that boy's favor. Comment a comment a commenter is just saying I've not forgiven Peter's mum for the comment about the winner, and she only mentioned a handful of times. She's only mentioned a handful of times in the entire series. She actually ends up dead in the District 12 bombings as well, which is quite unfortunate. Right. Suddenly, I'm behind the bakery and I can feel the chill of the rain running down my back, the hollowness in my belly. I sound 11 years old when I speak, but only because someone helped me. That that deserves being highlighted for emphasis. Peter's eyes flicker down to the roll in my hands, and I know he remembers that day too. But he shrugs. People will help you in the arena. They'll be tripping over each other to sponsor you. No more than you, I say. Peter rolls his eyes at Hamish. She has no idea the effect she can have. Once again, Katniss not really realizing how loved she is by everyone. He runs his fingernail along the wood grain in the table, refusing to look at me. You know, the fact that Katniss is just that clueless is crazy. I've just written Katniss has no idea how loved she is. What on earth does he mean? People help me. When we were dying of starvation, no one helped me. No one except Peter. Once I had, you know what? No one helped her because they were all starving her, themselves. Because burdock was actually like a very big source of meat and protein for District 12, especially for people in the seam as well. Where am I up to? No one except Peter. Once I had something to barter with, things changed. I'm a tough trader. Or am I? What effect do I have? That I'm weak and needy? Is he suggesting that I got good deals because people pitied me? The fact that she straight away goes to like the most negative thing possible. I try to think of this as true. Perhaps some of the merchants were a little generous in their trades, but I always attributed that to their long standing relationship with my father. Besides, my game is first class. No one pitied me. She goes through like several emotions there. That's so funny. Um, she's like, what if people pitied me? There's no way. Why would Peter say that to me? No, I have first class trades. First class, what did she say? Game. Katniss goes through has so many mood swings. She's trying to sort it out in her head, like what he actually means. She does that frequently. This is just a part of her trust issues. I glower at the. Is that how you say it? I glower. I glower at the role. Sure, he meant to insult me. After about a minute of this, Hamish says, "I'm just gonna highlight. I can't help but highlight everything, guys. Okay, prime example of Candace's trust issues. The comment, I've never considered that other families are struggling because of her dad is no longer selling meat and other goods. Yeah, I saw that one. That wasn't my idea that actually I didn't come up with that one. I saw that one I think on TikTok that other people were struggling. Because like Katniss, as we see, is providing meat to a lot of people, especially fresh game. Like fresh meat, as Katniss describes as well, is quite different to like maybe something imported from like the capital. That's what the merchant class often gets as well. Like the seam people rely they have like a lot less than the people in the merchant area, so they rely a lot on people bringing things in illegally that they can trade, which Katniss and Burdock, the Everdeen family, they're the main people that do that. And like I said earlier, like in Sunrise and the Reaping, Haymitch says that the Everdeen family are hunters. So they're known in the district to be doing that. They're the providers of the seam in the way that they're like hunters. Okay, let's go back to reading. After a minute of this, Haymitch says, well then, well, Katniss, there's no guarantee there'll be bows and arrows in the arena, but during your private session with the game makers, show them what you can do. Until then, stay clear of archery. Are you any good at trapping? I know a few basic snares, I mutter. That might be significant in terms of food, says Hamish, and Peter, she's right. Never underestimate your strength in the arena. Very often physical power tilts the advantage tilts the advantage to a player. In the training center, they will have weights, but don't reveal how much you can lift in front of the other tributes. The plan's the same for both of you. You go to group training, spend the time trying to learn something you don't know. Throw a spear, swing a mace, learn to tie a decent knot. Save showing what you're best at until your private sessions. Are we clear? I think Hamish actually mentoring them here is good as well. Surprising, but good. And I wonder where he got all of this information from because in Sunrise on the Reaping, it's probably from like experience. But in his own games, he didn't necessarily learn all of that. Like, don't reveal your skills. What he learned was essentially how to rebel against the capital. Okay. Peter and I nod. One last thing. In public, I want you to be by each other's side every minute. Okay, here we go. More rebellion. Haymitch is definitely, there's a plan brewing here. Okay. There's a rebel plan brewing here. There is a rebel plan brewing here, is just what I've written down. Um, and the thing with the difference here with Haymitch's games and the 74th Hunger Games is actually that they were very explicit with Haymitch that there was a rebellion going on and there was people who were working on trying to break the arena. They keep it very much secret when Katniss and Peter are showing signs of being the rebellious type, the type that are like fighters in the same way Haymitch was as well. And they don't let them in on the plans because so they've clearly learnt over the years what to do and what not to do. Right. We both start to object, but Hamish slams his hand on the table. Every minute, it's not open for discussion. You agree to do as I said. You will be together. You will appear. I can't even say that. Every time I say that one out loud, can't. I don't want to say it on stream. Appear amiable. I'm okay. I give up. I'm sorry to each other. Now get out. Meet Effie at the elevator at 10 for training. The thing is, when it comes to reading out loud, you guys are currently discovering that I read everything in my head and don't talk out loud a whole lot, which is very embarrassing to be on stream like that. But anyway, I bite my lip and stalk back to my room, making sure Peter can hear the door slam. How petty is that? That's such a teenage thing to do. I sit on the bed, hating Hamish, hating Peter, hating myself for mentioning the day long ago in the rain. It's such a joke. Peter and I go along pretending to be friends, talking up each other's strengths, insisting the other take credit for their abilities, because in fact, at some point, we're going to have to knock it off and accept we're bitter adversaries. Which I'd be prepared to do right now if it wasn't for for Hamish's stupid instruction that we stick together in training. It's my own fault, I guess, for telling him he didn't have to coach us separately. But that didn't mean I wanted to do everything with Peter, who, by the way, clearly doesn't want to be partnering up with me either. Well, I beg to differ. I beg to differ, Katniss. I think that he wants to partner up in more ways than one. Katniss, clueless of rebellion. Clueless on all parts. Katniss constantly being clueless of everything. I feel like here, um, Peter's feelings are likely that he knows that he's gonna die in order to save Katniss. Um, but his feelings aren't that he doesn't want to partner up with her because he doesn't like her. It's because he's like anxious almost about what's to come in the same way that Katniss is as well. All right, Peter is actually anxious about the days to come. Okay, let's continue reading. I hear Peter's voice in my head. She has no idea the effect she can have. Obviously meant to demean me. Katniss, trust issues, Everdeen. Obviously, okay, right? But a tiny part of me wonders if this was a compliment. Yeah, because your intuition, Katniss. All right, hang on, let me put it here. Your intuition is right, Candace. Right. That he meant I was appealing in some way. It's weird how much he's noticed me, like the attention he's paid to my hunting. And apparently, I have not been as oblivious to him as I imagined either. The flower, the wrestling. I have kept track of the boy with the bread. I love when she calls him the boy with the bread. So cute. All right, I'm just gonna write that down here. That's so cute. Okay. Okay. It's almost 10. I clean my teeth and smooth back my hair again. Anger temporarily blocked out my nervousness about meeting the other tributes, but now I can feel my anxiety rising again. By the time I meet Effie and Peter at the elevator, I catch myself biting my nails. I stop at once. That's something she actually does a lot as like an anxious like little mannerism. Um, the actual training rooms are below the ground level of our building. With these elevators, the ride is less than a minute. The doors open into an enormous gymnasium filled with various weapons and obstacle courses. There's a gym in Sunrise on the Reaping as well, but I think it's literally built in high school. It's I think it's like an old high school or something. They literally did it. They did all their training in it because it's not this one. Although it's not yet 10, we're the last ones to arrive. The other tribute, which is a complete opposite of what happens in Catching Fire. The other tributes are gathered in a tense circle. They each have a cloth square with tributes with their district's number on it pinned to their shirts. While someone pins the number 12 on my back, I do a quick assessment. Peter and I are the only two dressed alike. I don't think they have numbers in Sunrise on the Reaping. I think they're just categorized by their colors, which is obviously, as we find out, an indicator of what the arena would look like. So I wonder if this is something that happens for multiple years, is that they get their numbers on their back. Remind me in the comments, like if it's something that happens in the books or in Sunrise and the Reaping, whether they have their numbers pinned to their backs or if it's just separations by color. I might be wrong. They have cloth squares with their district number on it pinned to their shirts. While someone pins the number 12 on my back, I do a quick assessment. Peter and I are the only two dressed alike. As soon as we join, that's so funny. As soon as we join the circle, the head trainer, a tall, I don't think I actually, sorry, I had a thought, um, before we continue reading. I don't think they actually mention how much they're dressed alike more often than I realized before annotating this novel. Like, I knew it was something that happened that they talk about a lot, but like not quite this much. How long is this goddamn chapter? Oh my god. I have another 10 pages to go. Jeez. Okay. As soon as we join the circle, the head trainer, a tall, athletic woman named Adela, steps up and begins to explain the training schedule. Experts in each skill will remain at their stations. We will be free to travel from area to area as we choose, per our mentor's instructions. Some of the stations teach survival skills, others fighting techniques. We're forbidden to engage in any combative exercise with another tribute. There are assistants on hand if we want to practice with a partner. There's a comment saying, I don't recall numbers being on any of the shirts, and I've listened to all the audio books 3+ times. Yeah, I don't remember that. It very well could be in the books somewhere, but I only remember in Sunrise on the Reaping that they were separated by colors. Anyway, let's continue. When Adela begins to read down the list of skill stations, my eyes can't help flitting around to the other tributes. It's the first time we've been assembled on level ground in simple clothes. My heart sinks. Let me just move this down a bit. I'm just making sure it adjusts a bit. Almost all the boys and at least half the girls are bigger than I am. I think Hannah's just in general is small. It's not even like just a thing that Canis is starving in District 12. It's just the fact that Canis is this like petite thing. in general. Even though many of the tributes have never been fed properly, you can see it in their bones, their skin, the hollow look in their eyes. I may be smaller naturally. Yeah, there we go. Like I said. But overall, my family's resourcefulness has given me an edge in that area. I stand straight, and while I'm thin, I'm strong. The meat and plants from the woods combined with the exertion it took to get them have given me a healthier body than most of those I see around me, which gives her another advantage. So I think that's really important here. Um, because once again, the fact that she's illegally hunting has given her that advantage. She's been training like a career tribute, even if she didn't mean to. Okay. She's been hunting like a career tribute, even if she didn't mean to. All right, let's continue reading. The exceptions are the kids from the wealthier districts, the volunteers, the ones who have been fed and trained throughout their lives for this moment. The tributes from 1, 2, and 4 are traditionally have this look about them. It's technically against the rules to train tributes before they reach the capital, but it happens every year. In District 12, we call them the career tributes or just the careers. And like it or as and like as not, well, that doesn't make any sense. The winner will be one of them. Okay. Here, Katniss is quite the biased narrator. Because in District 12, as we can see, it's just District 12 she's saying that it's in. I'm not going to be able to fit the word narrator in here. Okay. Okay, Candace is a biased narrator because it's just District 12 that states this. The slight advantage I held coming into the training center, my fiery entrance last night, seems to vanish in the presence of my competition. The other tributes were jealous of us, not because we were amazing, but because our stylists were. Now I see nothing but contempt in the glances of the career tributes. Each must have 20 to 40 kilos on me. They project arrogance and brutality. When Adela releases us, they head straight for the deadliest looking weapons in the gym and handle them with ease. I'm thinking that it's lucky I'm a fast runner when Peter nudges my arm and I jump. He is still beside me per Hamish's instructions. His expression is sober. Where would you like to start? I look around at the career tributes, who are showing off, clearly trying to intimidate the field, then at the others, the underfed, the incompetent, shakily having their first lessons with a knife or an axe. See, they're dying straight away unless they can hide, like, say, the morphlings. Suppose we tie some knots, I say. Right you are, says Peter. We cross through an empty station where the trainer seems pleased to have students. You get the feeling that the knot tying class is not the Hunger Games hotspot. When he realizes I know something about snares, he shows us a simple, excellent trap that will leave a human competitor dangling from by a leg from a tree. Um, this is interesting because I wouldn't be surprised if Marvel learned this trap at some point, and that's what he uses to kill Prim. It's kind of like foreshadowing. Did I say it used to kill Prim or to kill Rue? I think you guys know what I mean. Okay, I wonder if Marvel learnt this and used it to kill Rue. This is what I've written down there. Okay, we concentrate on this skill for an hour and until both of us have mastered it, and then we move on to camouflage. Peter genuinely seems to enjoy this station, swirling a combination of mud and clay and berry juices around his pale skin, weaving disguises from vines and leaves. Foreshadowing here. Okay. A lot of they use this explicitly in Sunrise on the Reaping, or Suzanne Collins uses it. And it's not so explicit in this novel, but what's happening here is that the training stations have little tidbits and clues about what the arena is going to be. And in Sunrise and the Reaping, I don't remember what exactly is shown. I know it's going to be like colorful and stuff, so all the tributes have like colorful outfits and things like that. Foreshadowing Peter's disguise. The arena and what the arena will look like. Oh, that was a loud door slam. And the training stations foreshadow the arena. Okay, foreshadowing Peter's disguise in the arena, and the training stations foreshadow what the arena will look like. All right, the trainer who runs the camouflage station is full of enthusiasm at his work. I do the cakes, Peter admits to me. The cakes? I ask. I've been preoccupied with watching the boy from District 2 send a spear through a dummy's heart from 15 meters. What cakes? This here is Cato. At home, the iced ones for the bakery. It's just a description. Here, I'm just gonna write down this is Cato. You don't find that out, but that's his skills right there. That he's showcasing at home the iced ones for the bakery, he says. He means the ones they display in the windows. Fancy cakes with flowers and pretty things painted in frosting. They're for birthdays and New Year's Day. When we're in the square, Prim always drags me over to admire them, although we'd never be able to afford one. There's little enough beauty in District 12, though, so I can hardly deny her this. Oh, that is so sweet. Okay. I look more critically at the design on Peter's arm. The alternating pattern of light and dark suggests sunlight falling through the leaves in the woods. I wonder how he knows this, since I doubt he's ever been beyond the fence. He has been able to pick has he been able to pick this up from just that scraggly old apple tree in his back garden? Somehow the whole thing, his skill, those inaccessible cakes, the praise of the camouflage expert annoys me. I'm going to point this out right here. There's a really big class difference in District 12. The whole idea of like that class difference is the oppressor dividing the oppressed, so they have less ability to fight against the oppressor themselves. So like you see this in real life with a lot of infighting, say with like the left side of politics. So there's infighting, and it leaves less time for fighting against the real enemy, as they say in the Hunger Games. So this is a really big indicator of class difference. Class division, I should say. All right, in District 12, and okay, let's get back to, okay, class difference slash class division in District 12. It's lovely. If only you could frost someone to death, I say. That's so. So she attacks him. That's so funny. Don't be so superior. You can never tell what you'll find in the arena. Say it's actually a gigantic cake, begins Peter. Say we move on, I break in. That is so sad. Poor Peter being attacked immediately. Hmm. Okay. So the next 3 days pass with Peter and me going quietly from station to station. We do pick up some valuable skills from starting fires to knife throwing to making shelter. Despite Hamish's order to appear mediocre, Peter excels in hand-to-hand combat, and I sweep the edible plants test without blinking an eye. We steer clear of archery and weightlifting though, waiting to save those for our private sessions. The game makers appeared early on the first day, 20 or so men and women dressed in deep purple robes. That's one thing that people speculated with in Sunrise on the Reaping is the reason that the Sunrise on the Reaping book is purple is to do with the game makers, which I honestly don't really like. There's indicators in Sunrise on the Reaping that the book that a lot of the um arena is based on manipulating the game makers. So I guess that's would be why it's purple as well, because Haymitch is fighting against the game makers in the capital, rebelling in that way. I don't know why else it would be purple. There's a comment. I don't know this one. I also think it harkens back to Maslow's hierarchy and of needs, and Peter's and Katniss's are at different levels. I've never heard of that one before, but that is interesting. Like a hierarchy of needs is it? I can only assume that it's to do with like because they have different levels of needs. If you want to explain it in the comments, I was gonna say something and I'm like, actually, I don't know enough about this to talk about it, but I do kind of get the gist of what you're saying. If you want to explain it further in the comments. Like they definitely do have different. I just kicked my camera. They definitely do have different needs because they come from different parts of District 12. So Peter always, they say it later on in the novel, in the Hunger Games novel, that Peter always has access to food, but it's always like things like stale bread. But Katniss, while she doesn't have the most access to food, at least her food is always fresh. It's always fresh game that she's hunted. So it's like a difference between like, is life really, are you really living if if all you're eating is like stale bread? Like they are different in that way. They experience poverty. They both experience poverty in different ways. Okay, where am I up to? They sit in the elevated stands that surround the gymnasium, which actually is the same as in Sunrise on the Reaping. Sometimes wandering about to watch us jotting down notes, other times eating at the endless banquet that has been set for them, ignoring the lot of us. But they do seem to be keeping their eye on District 12 tributes. Several times I've looked up to find one fixated on me. They consult with the trainers during our meals as well. We see them all gathered together when we come back. I feel like is she pointing out that there's one of many, like the one that she's referring to here is a different game maker, or is it just one particular one? And we find out later in Catching Fire that the game maker that actually lands in the punch bowl that Katniss after Katniss throws a bow and arrow at them, that it was actually Plutarch who did that. So I wonder if this is Plutarch here she's talking about. Okay, what I've written here is I wonder if this is Plutarch realizing he found a luckier face of the rebellion. And the commenter just about hierarchy of needs just commented more on the hierarchy. Katniss would be at the bottom because she is still at survival level, and Peter is at a safety level and maybe a level or two higher with needing love and belonging. That's that is actually really interesting because he's definitely abused by his mother, and he was raised quite differently to Katniss, and which is also another thing that she refers to in the novels is that when it comes to Peter's life compared to hers, I think she says it earlier in the novel actually, when she sees that there's a bruise forming on Peter's face after he threw the burnt bread to her, that um, Katniss's parents never hit her or Prim, and she can't imagine Peter's mother hitting him or why she would do that, and she like mentions that stark difference between their households. So that's a really interesting tidbit, actually. I appreciate that comment. It does point out quite the difference between Katniss and Peter in that way. It's really interesting. All right, let's continue. Breakfast and dinner are served on our floor, but at lunch, the 24 of us eat in a dining room off the gymnasium. Food is arranged on carts around the room, and you serve yourself. Once again, food being mentioned. I'm always highlighting when the food is mentioned because it's once again a big thing. Like the Hunger Games has more than one meaning in this novel series. Of course, it means a lot about food and how everyone is fed during like the war and people being poor and not having access to food security. The career tributes tend to gather rowdily around one table as if to prove their superiority, that they have no fear of one another and consider the rest of us beneath notice. Most of the other tributes sit alone, like lost sheep. No one says a word to us. Peter and I eat together, once again them pairing up. And since Haymitch keeps dogging us about it, we try to keep a friendly conversation during the meals. All right. It's not easy to find a topic. Talking of home is painful. Talking of the present, unbearable. One day, Peter empties our bread basket and points out how they have been careful to include types from the districts along with refined bread of the capital. Right. I'm just going to highlight this whole bit about food and the bread because this actually, I'm going to write a little note about how the Katniss uses this later. So Katniss uses this later to identify bread from District 11. The fish-shaped loaf tinted green with seaweed from District 4, which is brought back up in Catching Fire. The crescent moon roll dotted with seeds from District 11. Somehow, although it's made from the same stuff, it looks a lot more appetizing than the ugly drop biscuits that are the standard fare at home. Okay, and I'm just gonna, this is still about food. So this is how this is different. The difference between each of the districts. So I'm just highlighting that. And there you have it, says Peter, scooping up the breads back in the basket. How does he know the difference between each breads and each districts? Because they would have had to have developed that kind of bread over a number of years, right? Like after the dark days, when everyone was rounded up in secluded and isolated in each district. How does he know that? Unless peacekeepers have mentioned it and the rumor got around to the merchant class, maybe that makes sense. You certainly know a lot, I say. Only about bread, he says. Okay, now laugh of if I've said something funny. We both give a somewhat convincing laugh and ignore the stares from around the room. Okay. All right, I'll keep smiling pleasantly and you talk, says Peter. It's wearing us both out. Hamish's directions to be friendly because ever since I slammed my door, there's been a chill in the air between us, but we have our orders. I want to make a note here. I'm going to tell you guys what the note is in a second. All right. Peter just wants the conversation to be genuine, is what I've written down. Because as we know as well, he storms out of the room in Captain Fire when Katniss suggests that they get married. Okay. Did I ever tell you about the time I was chased by a bear? I ask. No, but it sounds fascinating, says Peter. I wonder if he's actually interested, genuinely intrigued. Commenter is just saying the bread question is an excellent question. They know almost nothing about other districts, but somehow he's a bread across Pan expert. I don't know why. Maybe Suzanne Collins just like, like plotted that accidentally. I mean, it's very because Suzanne Collins' world building is so you know, what was I gonna say? It's so good. Her world building, you can actually just theorize around the plot holes. It's very easy to do that, even if like she didn't necessarily mean it, and it is genuinely a plot hole. You can usually get around it, which is something I find you can do that with a lot of media. Actually, it's just like however the creator has their writing style, however that works, however they build worlds. If you can genuinely get out of a plot hole surrounding theorizing around um those like plot holes, you know. Does that make sense? I don't know. I think I just repeated myself. Doesn't really matter. You can theorize around plot holes once you figure out how creators work and how their minds work. I try to animate my face as I recall the event, a true story, in which I foolishly challenged a black bear over the rights to a beehive, which I feel is probably the most dangerous thing you could be doing. I'm terrified of bears. Peter laughs and asks questions right on cue. He's much better at this than I am. That's because he's genuinely interested. Evidence of Katniss's bias narration. On the second day, we're taking a shot at spear throwing, he whispers to me. I think we have a shadow. I throw my spear, which I'm not too bad at actually, if I don't have to throw too far, and I see the little girl from District 11 standing back a bit, watching us. Also foreshadowing that eventually Rue is killed by a spear. Watching us. She's a 12-year-old, the one who reminded me so much of Prim in stature. Up close, she looks about 10. I'm also highlighting the way she looks because it's important. Or at least that's what I'm doing. I'm highlighting what all the characters look like. She has bright, dark eyes and satiny brown skin and stands tilted up on her toes with her arms slightly extended to her sides as if ready to take wing at the slightest sound. She's always comparing Rue to birds, which is why I think Rue is the first true Mockingjay. Okay. What I've written down, Rue is the Mockingjay who sparked the rebellion, and I'm just going to write down how this is foreshadowing. It's kind of evil of Suzanne Collins to do, foreshadowing Rue's death by spear. It is actually incredibly evil of her to put those two together as foreshadowing. Okay. I pick up another spear while Peter throws. I think her name's Rue, he says softly. How did he pick up on that? How did he realize that? Did he rewatch the reapings and memorize everyone's names? Because he's just a people person. I bite my lip. Rue is a small yellow flower that grows in the meadow. But she's reminded of that all the time. Rue Primrose. Neither of them could tip the scale at 30 kills soaking wet. What else can we do about it? I ask him, more harshly than I intended. Nothing to do, he says back, just making conversation. Now that I know she's there, it's hard to ignore the child. She slips up and joins us at different stations. Like me, she's clever with plants, climbs swiftly, and has good aim. She can hit the target every time with a slingshot, but what is the slingshot against a 100-kilo male with a sword? She's already thinking about Rue's death and how unfortunate that is. That's so sad. Back on the District 12 floor, Hamish and Effie grill us throughout breakfast and dinner about every moment of the day. What we did, who watched us, how the tributes size up. Cinna and Portia aren't around, so there's no one to add sanity to the meals. Not that Hamish and Effie are fighting anymore. Instead, they seem to be of one mind, determined to whip us into shape, full of endless directions about what we should do and not do in training. Peter is more patient, but I've become fed up and surely, whatever. I can't pronounce things, guys. I'm sorry. When we finally escape to bed on the second night, Peter mumbles, "Someone ought to get Hamish a drink." That's funny. I make a sound that is somewhere between a snort and a laugh, then catch myself. It's messing with my mind too much, trying to keep straight when we're supposedly friends when we're not. Okay, at least when we get into the arena, I know where we stand. Don't let's pretend when there's no one around. All right, Katniss. Peter getting used to Katniss's extreme trust issues and just rolling his eyes at it. I like that actually Peter doesn't get he doesn't hate Katniss, for he he doesn't hate her or begin to dislike her because of her trust issues. He likely understands where they're coming from. Um Peter getting used to Katniss's trust issues but not hating her for it is what I've written down. Okay, on the third day of training, they start to call us out of lunch for our private sessions with the game makers. District by district, first the boy, then the girl tribute. As usual, District 12 is slated to go last. We linger in the dining room, unsure where else to go. No one comes back once they have left. As the room empties, the pressure to appear friendly lightens. By the time they call Rue, we are left alone. We sit in silence until I summon Peter. He rises. Remember what Hamish said about being sure to throw the weights? The words come out of my mouth without permission. Thanks, I will. He says, You shoot straight. I nod. I don't know why I said anything at all. Although, if I'm going to lose, I'd rather Peter win than the others. Better for our district, for my mother and Prim. She changes her mind back and forth the whole novel about this one. Okay. Katniss changes her mind throughout the whole novel about this. Okay, after about 15 minutes, they call my name. I smooth my hair, set my shoulders back, and walk into the gymnasium. Instantly, I know I'm in trouble. They've been here too long, the game makers. Sat through 23 other demonstrations, had too much wine, most of them. Want more than anything to go home. Okay, this is just a game to them. They don't care about people's lives. This is just a game. Okay, a game and entertainment to them. Tributes' lives are worthless. Just spelled that one wrong. Okay, this is just a game and entertainment to them. Tributes' lives are worthless. There's nothing I can do but continue with the plan. I walk to the archery station. Oh, the weapons. I've been itching to get my hands on them for days. Bows made of wood and plastic and metal and materials I can't even name. Arrows with feathers cut into flawless uniform lines. I choose a bow, string it, and sling the matching quiver of arrows around over my shoulder. There's a shooting range, but it's it's much too limited. Standard bullseyes and human silhouettes, I walk to the center of the gymnasium and pick my first target, the dummy used for knife practice. Even as I pull back on the arrow on the bow, I know something is wrong. The string's tighter than the one I use at home. The arrow is more rigid. I miss the dummy by a few centimeters and lose what little attention I had been commanding. For a moment, I'm humiliated. Then I head back. Then I head back to the bullseye. I shoot again and again until the feel of these to get the feel of these new weapons. Back in the center of the gymnasium, I take my initial position and skewer the dummy right through the heart. Then I sever the rope that holds the sandbag for boxing, and the bag splits open as it slams to the ground. Without pausing, I shoulder roll forward, come up on my knee, and send an arrow into one of the hanging lights above the gymnasium floor. A shower of sparks bursts from the fixture. It's excellent shooting. I turn to the game makers. A few are nodding approval, but the majority of them are fixated on the roast pig that has just arrived at their banquet table. Suddenly, I am furious that with my life on the line, they don't even have the decency to pay attention to me. Then I'm being upstaged by a dead pig. My heart starts to pound. I can feel my face burning without thinking. I pull an arrow from my quiver and send it straight at the game maker's table. I, sh- I hear shouts of alarm as people stumble back. The arrow skewers the apple in the pig's mouth and pins it to the wall behind it. Everyone stares at me in disbelief. Thank you for your consideration, I say. Then I give a slight bow and walk straight towards the exit without being dismissed. Obviously, we have to highlight this. Um, I think without thinking is also very important to emphasize because a lot of her rebellious actions aren't happen on impulse. That's why she ends up in District 8 in Mockingjay with the hospital. Okay, a lot of Katniss's rebellious happen on impulse. All right. After an hour and 20 minutes, we're up to chapter 8. I read too slow for this. Fuck. I swear to God. Oh my God. Oh my God, it just keeps going. Okay. So we have to get to the end of 137, which is like 12 pages. It's not that long. I can do that. Okay. In the comments, I don't think it's fair to call Katniss someone with trust issues in this situation. They are literally going in the arena to kill each other. They can't afford to trust anyone here there. She's grown up watching the game. She knows what happens if you trust someone in the arena. That is an interesting take. I see a lot of people talking about Katniss's trust issues. Um, but yeah, no, she's going off of like her instincts and her own experience here. So you're right there. No, like she knows not to trust people, but at the same time, it's like I would argue that it is trust issues that have been developed by the Capitol and by the Hunger Games and by her environment in general. So it's like it's trust issues based on like lived experience, which is kind of where trust issues come from. But no, I think that's interesting. It's very different to what I see um, from the rest of the fandom. But yeah, you're not wrong there either. Right. As I stride towards the elevator, I fling my bow to one side and my quiver to the other. I brush past the gaping Avoxes who guard the elevator and hit the number 12 button with my fist. The doors slide together and I zip upwards. I actually make it back to my floor before the tears start running down my cheeks. I can hear the others for calling me from the sitting room, but I fly down the hall into my room, bolt the door, and fling myself onto my bed. Then I really begin to sob. I'm going to a commenter. I'm going to go to sleep now. It's kind of 3:40 here, like in the morning. Oh my God, that's fair. Thank you for watching though. I appreciate everyone's support on this live stream. All right, back to reading. Now I've done it. Now I've ruined everything. If I'd stood it even a ghost of a chance, it vanished when I sent that arrow flying at the game makers, which is the same kind of how Haymitch rebels against the Capitol, but Katniss actually demonstrates a certain skill as well. So she gets a high grade, but Haymitch gets a number one. Comments are also saying, I wouldn't argue she doesn't have trust issues, but in this situation, it's not really trust issues. It's a perfectly reasonable reaction. Yeah, no, that's totally fair. I get that one. I get that idea that she is basing it off of her experience with the games. Right. What will they do to me now? Arrest me, execute me, cut my tongue, and turn me into an Avox so I can wait on the future tributes of Panem? What was I thinking? Shooting the game makers. Of course I wasn't. I was shooting at that apple because I was so angry at being ignored. I wasn't trying to kill one of them. If I were, they'd be dead. Oh, what does it matter? It's not like I was going to win the games anyway. Who cares what they do to me? Really scares me what they might do to my mother and Prim. How my oh, didn't highlight that one properly. How my family might suffer now because of my impulsiveness. Right, this is how Hamish's family dies, is just what I've written down there. Right. Will they take their few belongings or send my mother to prison and Prim to the community home or kill them? They wouldn't kill them, would they? Why not? What do they care? Just gonna highlight all of that. I can't help but just highlight everything, guys. I say this all the time through these streams. Leave me alone. Just let me highlight things, please. It's not even the game makers making these decisions. It's actually Snow making those decisions to kill people. All right. I should have stayed and apologized or laughed like it was a big joke. Then maybe I would have found some leniency, but instead I stalked out of the place in the most disrespectful manner possible. Hamish and Effie are knocking on my door. I shout for them to go away, and eventually they do. It takes at least an hour for me to cry myself out. Then I just lie curled up on the bed, stroking the silken sheets, watching the sun set over the artificial candy capital. At first, I expect guards to come from me, but as time passes, it seems less likely. I calm down. They still need a girl tribute from District 12, don't they? If the game makers want to punish me, they can do it publicly. Which is what they do to Maisie and Barrett and Amber. They do exactly this to many tributes. For example, Maisie. It's not something that they hide from doing. Alright, I wait until I'm in the arena and set starving wild animals on me. You can bet they'll make sure I don't have a bow and arrow to defend myself. Before that, though, they'll give me a score so low no one in their right mind would sponsor me. They do that to Hamish. They give Hamish a low score, and clearly clearly the game makers and Seneca Crane take different approaches now. Right? That's what will happen tonight. Since the training isn't open to viewers, the game makers announce a score for each player. So this is another example of how the games work and how each how the games are aired to Pan Am. It gives the audience a starting place for the betting that will continue throughout the games. The number, which is between 1 and 12, 1 being irredeemably bad, and 12 being unattainably high, signifies the promise of the tribute. The mark is not only a guarantee of which person will win, the mark is not a guarantee of which person will win. It's only an indication of the potential a tribute is showing in training. Guys, I've highlighted the majority of this page so far. That's bad. Why am I like this? Often because the variables in the actual arena high scoring, tributes go down almost immediately. And a few years ago, the boy who won the games only received a 3. A few years ago, who won that games? Still, the scores can help or hurt an individual tribute in terms of sponsorship. I had been hoping my shooting skills might get me a 6 or a 7, even if I'm not particularly powerful. Now I'm sure I'll have the lowest score of the 24. If no one sponsors me, my odds of staying alive decrease to almost 0. When Effie taps on the door to call me to dinner, I decide I may as well go. The scores will be televised tonight. It's not like I can hide what happened forever. Katniss. How many pages did we say was in this chapter? 137 is where, yeah. Okay. We're just doing to the end of chapter 8 today. Okay. I go to the bathroom and wash my face, but it's still red and splotchy. Everyone's waiting at the table, even Cinna and Portia. I wish the stylist hadn't shown up because for some reason I don't like the idea of disappointing them. It's as if I've thrown away all the good work they did on the opening ceremonies without a thought. I avoid looking at anyone as I take tiny spoonfuls, or knocked my camera, spoonfuls of fish soup. The saltiness reminds me of my tears. Just gonna write a thought about Cinna's relationship with Candace. Here, Katniss's relationship with Cinna is growing, which is good. All right. The adults begin some chit chat about the weather forecast, and I let my eyes meet Peter's. He raises his eyebrows. A question. What happened? I just give my head a small shake. Then, as we're serving the main course, I hear Hamish say, "Okay, enough small talk. Just how bad were you today?" Thing is, he has experience with low scores. Peter jumps in. I don't know that it mattered by the time I showed up. No one even bothered to look at me. They were singing some kind of drinking song, I think. So I threw around some heavy objects until they told me I could go. That makes me feel a bit better. It's not like Peter attacked the game makers, but at least he was provoked too. And you, sweetheart, says Hamish. Somehow Hamish calling me sweetheart ticks me off enough that I'm at least able to speak. I shot an arrow at the game makers. I think now with the context of oh my god. Now with the context of Sunrise and the Reaping, it makes me sad, this little tidbit. He knows that Katniss is upset about his score and he goes, and this is like a polite little like, and you sweetheart, like being soft with her and being kind because she's been upset. And Katniss doesn't like it. She hates it. So depressing. Like the word sweetheart isn't condescending like Katniss thinks. Oh my god. It's nice and kind and oh, guys, so depressing. Damn it. The context of Haymitch and Luella. Haymitch is trying to be kind and soft to Katniss, but she's upset. I'm depressed now. I'm sad. Okay, I've just written with the context of Haymitch and Luella. Haymitch is trying to be kind and soft to Katniss because she is upset. Everyone get away from me. Don't speak to me for 5 business months. Now I'm sad. Okay. I shot an arrow at the game makers. And here everyone is. Everyone stops eating. You what? The horror in Effie's voice confirms my worst suspicions. I shot an arrow at them, not exactly at them in their direction. It's like Peter said, I was shooting and they were ignoring me and I just lost my head. So I shot an apple out of their stupid roast pig's mouth, I say defiantly. Katniss proud of her rebellion. Katniss is becoming more confident in her rebellion here. Okay. And what did they say? Cinna says Cinna carefully. Nothing, or I don't know. I walked out after that, I say. Without being dismissed, gasps Effie. I just missed myself, I said. I remember how I promised Prim that I really would try to win, and I feel like a ton of coal has dropped on me. Well, that's that, says Hamish. Then he butters his roll. Do you think they'll arrest me? I ask. Doubt it. It'd be a pain to replace you at this stage. I just want to highlight all of this once again with the context of Sunrise on the Reaping. Hamish knows a little bit, a thing or two about replacing a tribute because he was not actually reaped. One fun fact for those of you who haven't read Sunrise on the Reaping, and just as read the novel, I'm not going to give any more spoilers than that. But watching the movie, I'm sure it's going to be a shock to a lot of people that Hamish was not actually raped. Um, oh, I keep knocking my damn camera. I'm sorry, guys. There's so many tidbits now that I'm like, oh, with the context of Sunrise and the Reaping, it means so much more now. Hmm. What about my family? I say, will they punish them? Don't think so. Wouldn't make much sense. See, they'd have to reveal what happened in the training center for it to have any worthwhile effect on the population. People would need to know what you did, but they can't since it's a secret, so it'd be a waste of effort, says Hamish. More likely they'll make your life hell in the arena. Once again, something he knows from his own rebellious acts. Well, they've already promised to do that to us anyway, says Peter. Very true, says Hamish. And I realize the impossible has happened. They have actually cheered me up. Hamish picks up a pork chop with his fingers, which makes Effie frown, and dunks it in his wine. Ew. Ew. He rips off a hunk of meat and starts to chuckle. What were their faces like? I can feel the edges of my mouth tilting up, shocked, terrified, ridiculous, some of them. An image pops into my mind. One man tripped backwards into a bowl of punch. Now we find out in Catching Fire that the man who tripped backwards into a bowl of punch is actually Plutarch. I'm considering writing a note about Hamish. Hamish knows all this from personal experience. I might just go and highlight all of it because I love me some highlighting. Bet you this highlighter runs out of ink one day before we annotate the whole book. Okay, where am I up to? Hamish, he what? Gorfs? I think that's how you pronounce it. Hamish Gorfs. And we all start laughing, except Effie, although she is suppressing a smile. Well, it serves them right. It's their job to pay attention to you, and just because you come from District 12 is no excuse to ignore you. Then her eyes dart around if she said something totally outrageous. I'm sorry, but that's just what I think, she says to no one in particular. Um, it's evidence of the capital citizens and how they don't have total freedom either. Capital civilians don't have freedom of speech either. I'll get a very bad score, I say. Scores only matter if they're very good. No one pays much attention to the bad or mediocre ones. For all they know, you could be hiding your talents to get a low score on purpose. People use that strategy, says Portia. I hope that's how people interpret the 4 I'll probably get, says Peter. If that really is anything less impressive than watching a person pick up a heavy ball and throw it a couple of meters. One almost landed on my foot, poor Peter. He does not have any confidence at all in himself. Someone needs to take this highlighter out of my hand, I'm realizing. Peter has no confidence in himself at all. I grin at him and realize that I'm starving. I cut off a piece of pork, dunk it in mashed potatoes, and start eating. I'm just, once again, highlighting the food that Candace describes in the book. It's okay, my family's safe and they are safe. And if they are safe, no real harm has been done. After dinner, we go to the sitting room to watch the scores announced on television. First, they show a photo of the tribute, then flash the scores below it. The Korea tributes naturally get in the 8 to 10 range. Most of the other players average a 5. Surprisingly, little Rue comes up with a 7. I don't know what she showed the judges, but she's so tiny it must have been impressive. District 12 comes up last. As usual, Peter pulls an 8, so at least a couple of the game makers must have been watching him. I just want to highlight what score he actually ended up getting. I dig my fingernails into my palms as my face comes up, expecting the worst. Then they're flashing the number 11 on screen. Just highlighting what scores they got. I don't know, future reference, I guess. Important to note, I guess. How many more pages do I have left? Not a lot. Okay. 11! Exclamation mark. Effie Trinket lets out a squeal, and everybody is slapping me on the back and cheering and congratulating me. But it doesn't seem real. There must have been a mistake. How could that have happened? I ask Hamish. Guess they liked your temper, he says. They've got a show to put on. They need some players with some heat. Katniss, the girl who was on fire, says Cinna and gives me a hug. Oh, wait until you see your interview dress. More flames, I ask. Of a sort, he says mischievously. Peter and I congratulate each other. Another awkward moment. We've both done well, but what does that mean for the other? I escape to my room as quickly as possible and burrow down under the covers. The stress of the day, particularly the crying, has worn me out. I drift off, reprieved, relieved, and with the 11 still flashing behind my eyelids. At dawn, I lie in bed for a while, watching the sun come up on a beautiful morning. It's Sunday, a day off at home. I wonder if Gail is in the woods yet. Usually we devote all of Sunday to stock up for the week, rising early, hunting and gathering, then trading at the hob. I think of Gail without me. Both of us can hunt alone, but we're better as a pair, particularly if we're trying for bigger game, but also in the littler things. Having a partner lighten the load could even make the arduous task of filling my family's table enjoyable. I don't really want to highlight any of their relationship, you know. Um, it's always Katniss is just like reflecting on her life with Gale that she can't go back to. Katniss is reflecting on the life she cannot go back to. Okay, let's keep reading. I'm just gonna. I want to highlight here their relationship is platonic. Platonic with a capital P. Their relationship is still platonic here. It hasn't developed into anything else because Gale forces her into like this weird relationship because he's selfish and a prick. I'd been struggling along on my own for about 6 months when I first ran into Gale in the woods. It was a Sunday in October, the air cool and pungent with dying things. I'd spent the morning competing with squirrels for nuts and the slightly warmer afternoon wading in shallow ponds, harvesting catnip. Only meat I'd shot was a squirrel that had particularly run over my toes in its quest for acorns, but the animals would still be afoot when the snow buried my other food sources. Having strayed further afield than usual, I was hurrying back home, lugging my burlap sacks, when I came across a dead rabbit. It was hanging by its neck in a thin wire 30 centimeters above my head. About 15 centimeters away was another. I recognized the twitch up snares because my father had used them. When the prey is caught, it's yanked into the air out of the reach of other hungry animals. I'd been trying to use snares all summer with no success, so I couldn't help dropping my sacks to examine this one. My fingers were just on the wire above one of the rabbits when a voice rang out. That's dangerous. I jumped back as Gale materialized from behind a tree. He must have been watching me the whole time. He was only 14, but he cleared 6 feet and was as good as an adult to me. I think this is really important to note because there's clearly a difference between Gale and Katniss here. When they met, like, there's a big age difference between 12 and 14. Like, you grow a lot as a teenager. You know, you hit puberty, you grow, and you're very different from a 12-year-old, essentially. So I think that it's weird that Gale develops feelings for Katniss because they met when they were so young. I guess, like, obviously it's not weird when he does develop feelings. I think he mentions that she would have been like, I don't know, 15 and he was 17. So it's not like it's weird in the present day. I just think that it's weird in the sense that clearly their relationship is platonic and all of a sudden Gale turns around and is like, no, I want to be in a relationship with you because he's selfish. You know, it's weird in that sense. It's not until they grow up that Gale feels like he is owed something. Okay. So clearly their relationship is platonic because of their age gap. And then I'm just going to write up here. It isn't, because I ran out of room, it isn't until they grow up that Gale feels he is owed a romantic relationship. I just think the expectation is odd, you know, because they're so clearly different in that age gap when they meet. I'd seen him around the seam and at school, and one other time. He'd lost his father in the same blast that killed mine. In January, I'd stood by while he received his Medal of Valor in the Justice Building, another oldest child with no father. I remembered his two little brothers clutching his mother, a woman whose swollen belly announced she was just days away from giving birth. What's your name? He said, coming over and disengaging the rabbit from his snare. He had another three hanging from his belt. Katniss, I said, barely audible. Barely audible. Well, catnip, stealing's punishable by death, or hadn't you heard? He said. Katniss, I said louder, and I wasn't stealing it. I just wanted to look at your snare. Mine never catch anything. He scowled at me, not convinced. So where'd you get the squirrel? I shot it. I pulled my bow off my shoulder. I was still using the small version my father had made me, but I'd been practicing with the full-sized one when I could. I was hoping that by spring I might be able to bring down some bigger game. Gale's eyes fastened on the bow. Can I see that? I handed it over. Just remember, stealing's punishable by death. That was the first time I ever saw him smile. It transformed him from someone menacing to someone you'd wish you knew. But it took several months before I returned that smile. Candace's trust issues. It's always Candace and her trust issues, isn't it? We talked hunting then. I told him I might be able to get him a bow if he had something to trade. Not food, I wanted knowledge. I wanted to set my own snares that caught a belt of fat rabbits in one day. He agreed something might be worked out. As the seasons went by, we grudgingly began to share knowledge, our weapons, our secret places that were thick with wild plums or turkeys. He taught me snares and fishing. I showed him what plants to eat and eventually gave him one of our precious bows. And then one day, without either of us saying it, we became a team, dividing the work and spoils, making sure both our families had food. I think it's really sad because Katniss obviously learned how to trust again through Gale, and then he betrays that trust. So does she say it more? Okay. I'm gonna mention that over the next page to annotate it. Dale gave me a sense of security I'd lacked since my father's death. His companionship replaced the long solitary hours in the woods. I'm actually going to write it here. Hang on. Correct. Gale teaches Katniss to trust people again, but it's sad how he eventually betrays that trust by killing her family. Okay. We're almost at the end of chapter 8. Oh, what was I became a much better hunter when I didn't have to look over my shoulder constantly. And I guess like a better person, right? When someone was watching my back, and I guess then she became a better person and having someone to trust. Is just what I've written down. But he turned into so much more than a hunting partner. He became my confidant, someone with whom I could share thoughts I could never voice inside the fence. In exchange, he trusted me with his. Always owing someone something as well, still. Being in the woods with Gail, sometimes I was actually happy. Um, this relationship, though, is still an exchange. There is still owing and expectation. There is still owing and expectation with Gail. And I just want to highlight here in exchange, put emphasis on that. I call him my friend, but in the last year it seemed too casual a word for what Gail is to me. Pang of longing shoots through my chest. It doesn't necessarily mean romantic though. Like having someone who is a bit like a friend, but like a bit more than that doesn't necessarily mean that relationship is romantic. Pang of longing shoots through my chest. If only he was with me now. But of course, I don't want that. I've just written down, but this doesn't mean romantic feelings. All right. I don't want him in the arena where he'd be dead in a few days. I just miss him. I hate being so alone. Does he miss me? He must. I think of the 11 flashing under my name last night. I know exactly what he'd say to me. Well, there's some room for improvement there. And then he'd give me a smile and I'd return it without hesitating now. I can't help comparing what I have with Gail to what I'm pretending to have with Peter. How I never question Gail's motives while. See? Hang on a minute. You're friends. Peter and Katniss are friends at this point. I really need to emphasize that Katniss's feelings for Gale are platonic at this point, and the reason she comes up with a romantic relationship with Gale is out of peer pressure. From Gale, might I add. Peter and Katniss's relationship is still platonic here, and therefore so is Katniss and Gale's relationship. Ow. Okay. How I never question Gale's motives while I do nothing but doubt the latter's. It's not a fair comparison, really. Gale and I have were thrown together by a mutual need to survive. Peter and I know the other survival means our own death. How do you sidestep that? Effie's knocking at the door, reminding me there's another big, big, big day ahead. Tomorrow night will be our televised interviews. I guess the whole team will have their hands full readying us. I get up and take a quick shower, being a bit more careful about the buttons I hit, and head down to the dining room. Peter, Effie, and Hamish are huddled around the table talking in hushed voices. This seems odd. I'm just gonna. Right, this worsens Candace's trust issues. Right, okay. And that seems odd, but hunger wins out over curiosity, and I load my plate with breakfast before I join them. The stew is made with tender chunks of lamb and dried plums today. Perfect on the bed of wild rice. I've shoveled. She finds out what rice is eventually, clearly, because earlier she didn't know what white grain was, and she was not referring to it as rice. So that's actually an indicator that she's learning what food is. Hang on, Katniss. Know what rice was earlier. Okay. What I've written down, Katniss did not know what rice was earlier, indicating she was learning about food. I've shoveled about halfway through the mound when I realize no one's talking. Take a big gulp of orange juice. I'm just going to highlight what she's eating and wipe my mouth. So, what's going on? You're coaching us on interviews today, right? That's right, says Hamish. You don't have to wait until I'm done. I can listen and eat at the same time, I say. Well, there's been a change of plans about our current approach, says Hamish. What's that? I ask. I'm not sure what our current approach is. Trying to appear mediocre in front of the other tributes is the last bit of strategy I remember. Hamish shrugs. Peter has asked to be coached separately. All right. That is the end of chapter 8. And do I want to write a note at the end of this chapter here? Um, all right. Katniss doesn't know this is for a purpose. Purpose being Peter has feelings for Katniss, and this is going to be revealed in the interviews. Um, Purpose and takes this as a manipulation strategy to kill her in the arena. Okay. My last bit of chapter 8. Katniss does not know this is for a purpose and takes this as a manipulation strategy to kill her in the arena. Now we're up to chapter 9. Officially, which means this is the end of the live stream. I will be streaming chapters 9 and 10 next week on Tuesday. I'm live streaming every Tuesday and Thursday from now on. So hopefully you guys enjoyed today's live stream. I'm enjoying annotating the Hunger Games novels. It's honestly really fun being able to annotate these novels for you guys. And that was a really loud door slam as well. And yeah, so I'm gonna be going. We've done so much so far, guys. Look at this. Look at how, can you guys see that? Yeah, look at how much of the novel we've gotten through. There is 27 chapters in total in this. And I'm gonna be doing about like um 2 chapters a stream. So thank you guys so much for watching this stream today. I got quite a lot of views today. So that's pretty good. Hopefully, you guys are still enjoying me annotating the Hunger Games novels. I'm going to figure out next time how to make it less blurry as well. I'm probably going to use my phone next time to make it less blurry so it can be clearer. So yeah. Once again, if you liked, please like and subscribe and yeah. Comment about what you think of. Are you annotating all of your own novel? Let me know what if you guys are annotating your own novels. You're welcome to annotate along with me every Tuesday and Thursday. But that is it for today's stream. And I'll see you guys